Welcome to part 3 in my video series on what this old Mercedes diesel is worth. Now, if you recall, in part 1, I did a complete walk around and showed you all the problems with the exterior of this car, particularly the paint and the condition of what's under the paint, and I showed you the rust, and then we took a look at the interior. The interior is just a mess, okay? You know, things are torn up, nothing works. Finally, we were going to start the engine, it wouldn't start. So I had to gather together some things to get the engine running. So in part 2, I got this engine running, and there were some surprises at how well this started and shut off. That's correct, and how well it stopped. Then we took it in for an inspection, checked everything over before giving it a road test. And man, did this thing rock and roll. Not only it had a tremendous amount of power, but the transmission just shifts beautifully, and you got to see a chance on how smooth this engine really runs. So I've got about 18,000 views as of today and maybe 250 comments. The comments really interesting, got a few really funny ones. But I would say the majority, 70 to 80% of you said the car is worth somewhere between $500 and maybe $1,200. Some people stretched up to $1,500. A few, went higher than that. But as an average, it went something like this. Okay, if it's not running, $500. If it's running and the transmission shifts good, maybe $1,000, $1,200. That was the average. Now, some people thought I should restore this. Oh my word, can you believe that? Here I'm 78 years old, and you think I want to spend my twilight years restoring this? By the way, I've decided to call this car Tank. So I will refer to this car as Tank in the future. Why Tank? Number one, this car is a real tank, and when it was built, it was a real tank. A very solid car, very safe car. And for the amount of horsepower in this diesel, it performed very well, very popular car. That's one of the reasons I call this car Tank. The other reason is the car or the body should be tanked. Literally should be tanked. This is probably one of the worst 300 SDs I've seen as far as body and interior cosmetic condition. It's not worth my time restoring. And I should tell you, by the way, that the purpose of those first 2 videos was to help me decide what I should offer the seller. And some of you thought I should offer nothing. Some of you thought he should pay me. One guy said I should give him a bus ride home. I thought that was pretty funny. I have purchased the car. I'm not going to tell you what I paid for it, but I paid more than most of you recommended. And in this video, I'm going to show you why. I came into the shop this morning. We'd parked the car after a hard drive and let it sit overnight. I want to show you what I discovered. At the end of part 2 in my series on what is this old diesel worth, so when I pulled it into the shop, I said, okay, let's give it the next test. We're going to see if this thing leaks oil or if the transmission leaks any fluid. Now, before I push the car back, I want to talk a little bit more about this tank we were running on and how important that is. If you look at this pre-filter, it's full of black junk, and that's an indication we have some algae in the fuel, which means the fuel in the tank or the tank screen could be bad. So obviously, if I was going to keep the car, I'd drain the tank and clean everything up, but I just want to do a test. So if you're going to do a test on an engine, make sure you're running on good, clean, new, and I'm going to emphasize new diesel fuel. My goal here is to push this thing back. It hasn't moved since yesterday. Let's see what it looks like underneath the engine and transmission. Now, those of you who have been around these 40-year-old diesels like this, you're going to say, what? There's nothing. Look at that. Absolutely not a drip. That's a piece of old Miracle paint there. That's not even a drip. This is so unusual. This indeed indicates we have a very special engine in this car. There were also a number of viewers that told me to walk away. Just walk away from this thing. You don't need it. But I disagree. I saw something the first time I opened the hood of this car, a week or so ago, and now I own it. And those of you who think I should restore this car, forget it. This is not a rare car. There are a ton of 300 SDs out there if you just look, and you can find them in pretty nice condition for well less than it would just cost to repaint this thing, okay? So tank itself is going to go, be parted out, but what about this engine? I think 4 or 5 of you saw what I saw when I opened the hood, which suddenly completely changed how I viewed the value of this car, and I'm going to show you right now what that is. For those of you not real familiar with these 5-cylinder turbo diesel engines, maybe you've seen them before, maybe you've even owned one before but really haven't done anything major to it. This looks pretty typical, but there's one thing that's different, and it's right here. Look at this valve cover. Look at the ridge that goes across here and comes down here. This indicates that this is a Mercedes genuine factory rebuilt engine, not just a long block. It means new turbocharger, new injection pump installed. There are a few accessories that you'll have to add, but I'm looking around here, I can tell this power steering pump is new. I can look over here, brake booster is new. A lot of things have been replaced at the same time. So if you look at a regular turbo diesel engine, I'm going to show you one here in a 300D, you'll notice that this ridge is missing. And that's what I saw when I opened the hood of this car originally. I said, oh my word, I think we may have a jewel here. And for those of you who thought this engine was all steam cleaned and cleaned up before the video, no, this is exactly how it came in here. Nothing has been cleaned on this engine. You're looking at its original aged format right here. I know some of you might say, hey Kent, what's so special about a Mercedes factory remanufactured engine? You can get your engine rebuilt. I remember one guy said, oh, you can find these engines anywhere in any wrecking yards. Yeah, just try to find a good one today where they aren't all worn out. So we're no longer talking about what's this car worth. I want to focus on what it costs to rebuild a OM617 turbo diesel engine. Now, I'm not interested anymore in opinions. We're looking for facts here, so I'm going to require that you qualify to make a comment. I only want comments from people who have owned these turbo diesel cars, particularly those who have replaced the engine, had the engine burn up and had to rebuild it, or have installed a rebuilt engine. So here's what I want to know. Let's start with a few questions. I want answers from those of you who have knowledge or experience with this. If you don't, please don't leave a comment. It will be deleted. I hope you understand why. Number one, are rebuilt engines available, and what do they cost? That's the first and major question. Number two, what does it cost for a complete rebuild kit, and does it include the pistons? Number three, what do 5 turbo diesel pistons cost new for this engine? Next question, what's the labor cost at a shop to remove and replace the engine? Finally, what's it cost to get a transmission completely overhauled? Because he spent, I think, almost $5,000 on getting the transmission overhauled as well. So I want some input from those of you who've had experience. We're going to look at what is the value of one of these engines in really good condition. We're looking for some facts here, and I will come back in part 4 and we'll discuss some of the challenges you're going to face if you have one of these cars and your engine goes south on you and you need to find a replacement.